Hey guys, we are here today talking about the Hobie BOS series event on Lake Champlain. Just wrapped it up yesterday. This was a super fun event. I've been looking forward to this event all season long. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what went right, what went wrong, and what we learned while we were out there. Because we figured out something a little bit late, and but it made a big difference on day two. So diving right in, I knew this was going to be a super exciting event. I knew this event could be won either on largemouth or smallmouth. If the weather conditions were good, people up north, they could get on some giant smallies up there. And on the other side, Ticonderoga area is known for big largemouth. So Champlain is always, a coin flip. Do you go north? Do you target those big, deep, clear water smallmouth? Do you go south to the stained, muddier water down in Ty and chase those big, spawning, this time of year, largemouth? Now, most people know me as a smallmouth guy. I love smallmouth. I much rather fish for smallmouth most of the time. But this season's been a weird one. Done a few smallmouth tournaments this year, and they haven't gone great for me. I've been really struggling with my smallmouth game this season, so I wasn't really having confidence going north and targeting those big smallies. So I decided I'm gonna stay south, I'm gonna fish down in the Thai area, and I'm gonna target largemouth. Last year, we had a big club event, and I fished an area down there, and I won the event, and I did it targeting largemouth. So I knew this year was going to be a little bit different. Because of the launch situation, I couldn't put in where I put in last year. So I had to go out and find someplace else to go. But I still wanted to fish the same area. And thanks to another angler in our club, who recommended I check out a spot. She didn't actually know whether or not you could launch there, but when I went there, sure enough, there was a small boat launch area, and I was able to fish where I wanted to fish. But weather had, some complications in there. When I went in pre-fishing, I was on 17 to 19 inch largemouth, and I was catching them how I expected to catch them, which was moving baits just off the shore a little bit in the grass. So it was exactly like I expected it to be when I was out there pre-fishing, but it was nearly flat calm when I was pre-fishing. There was very little wind. And last year at our event, there was very little wind. And what people don't realize about down in Ticonderoga is most of the bottom is a clay mud bottom. And right now when water levels are low, you get a lot of boat traffic or a little bit of wind, it kicks that lake up and it muddies the water, and it can get really, really muddy down there. And that's what happened the past couple days leading up to the tournament, and especially during the tournament. We had high south winds. So I went out on tournament day, and I actually got really lucky. I passed an area and I found a shad spawn going on. There was a ton of shad up spawning on this point, and I spent about an hour both mornings targeting that, and it wasn't even until day two that I managed to get one bass to hit a spinnerbait. But that was just something I stumbled upon. Didn't really play a factor though in the tournament. The bass I caught there that morning, I ended up calling that one out anyways. But it's just something that you always got to keep your eye open for, that kind of thing. But my main deal was throwing a chatterbait. And like I said, in practice, I got everything offshore. Last year, everything was just offshore in the grass. And it was looking for just smaller scattered grass, mostly targeting pre-spawn and post-spawn largemouth that are using that area when they just come off their beds or are getting ready to go on the beds. And the area I was fishing, big tournaments have been won there as well. I done well there, so I had a lot of confidence. I knew what I was doing and I knew what I should be targeting. So Saturday morning came and I went out there and I fished a large section of the area that I wanted to fish, and I didn't catch anything other than pike and drum. And I was consistently throwing the chatterbait. I also mixed in a square bill in there a little bit. I did a little bit of flipping in there, but I really didn't get on any bass, and it was kind of frustrating. And what I was throwing, and everybody knows, it's your standard jackhammer. This is, the bait everybody throws. I wasn't throwing black and blue. I'm just gonna put that right out there. I was not throwing black and blue. I was throwing a different color. But I have two baits here, and that's why I want to show you an important difference. So I was throwing the jackhammer, and about midday, I actually threw the jackhammer up through a denser, bigger clump of grass. And it was the first bass I actually caught on Saturday was in a thick patch of grass. Now, I didn't think much of it. In pre-fishing, I never really caught him on the thick stuff. It was always on the scattered stuff. So, I noted that, but I continued on. And then the rest of the bass I got were right up against the bank. And an area I was fishing had kind of a rocky bank, and then there was a narrow section of not really much grass, and then the grass started just, a little bit offshore from that. And most of the day I was targeting that area in between the grass and the bank. And it wasn't until later in the day when I started throwing the jackhammer right up on the rock bank, that's when I started getting bit. And I think what was happening was those bass that normally were out cruising in between the grass line, that inside weed line, and the bank, they're out there feeding, they're moving, they're in the scattered grass. All of that stuff, they weren't there anymore. Because the water got so muddy, they were either tucking themselves into the thick grass, or more so, they were tucking themselves right up against that rock bank. You pretty much had to put the bank on the rocks and pull it out through. Now, one of the big problems, though, was there were some areas where you had thick grass right up against the rock. And the jackhammer, the head on this, it's got this archy style head, which is a great do-everything head. It skips well under docks. You can do a lot through it, but it doesn't come through some of that thicker hydrilla as easily. I was getting it caught up not just on the blade. You can rip the blade through the grass, but the head itself was getting gummed up with too much grass. So finally, it dawned on me on Sunday when I started to piece things better together that I had to be putting this bait right on the shore, or I had to be pulling it through the very dead center of the grass. That's when I made the switch. And I switched to a Project Z. Now, if you notice the Project Z, it has more of a swim bait style head, swim jig style head. So you've got this narrower profile. And if you compare the two, you can definitely see the big difference in the head shape. So you go from this archy style head to the swim jig style head. The swim jig just came through so much nicer through the grass. I could also, because that head shape and the trailer I was using, it didn't sink down into the rocks as quick. So I could definitely throw this right up on the shore and get it swimming out of there nicely. I could pull it through the thicker grass. And it's amazing what a simple change from one head style to the other head style allowed me to swim this bait so much better and put it in the right spot that I was on fish all day on Sunday. I was on better quality fish. And it also, I fished a main area that I wanted to fish on Saturday and I didn't get bit, and I wrote that area off thinking the bass had left. when in reality, they just moved, and they only moved a foot. They literally moved from a foot to 2 feet off of the rock to on the rock, or a foot from 2 feet off the grass to in the grass. And it's amazing how just that one subtle change, I didn't pick up on that on Saturday. I think if I had, on Sunday, I could have worked some of those banks over a little better, and I definitely would have caught more of the quality fish that I was expecting to catch. Now, that, said, I don't know if I would have been able to fight the wind all day to do that, but at least I learned exactly what I should have been doing. The bass moved, but they didn't go far, and I didn't figure that out in time. And as soon as I did and clued in on it, I made the change to the right style head, and I put up 4 3/4 more inches on Sunday than I did on Saturday. I was catching fish all day, making culls, and I definitely feel that had I made that switch earlier, the tournament would have gone a little different, and I might have even been able to, at least make a solid showing towards getting a check. So, yeah, that's just a quick bait summary of how my tournament went on Lake Champlain. I love that lake. I love the area that I'm fishing in. Definitely any more spring tournaments are there, I'm going to be going back to that area. I'm going to be targeting largemouth. I now know how to handle it better when the wind kicks up, when the water gets muddied. I know how to handle it, and I can go in there, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to catch the right class of fish. So I hope you guys learned something from this, and appreciate it. And yeah, so tight lines, everybody. Stay safe out there. Have fun. Go fishing, and we'll see you later.